Now that Whole Foods is everywhere and so many restaurants follow your local food model, do you feel you've succeeded?
Sadly, I think a lot of big supermarkets have misused terms from this movement and confused people. The fruits and vegetables aren't all seasonal or local. The meat isn't all organic and grass-fed. So we still have to ask lots of questions. Where did the beef come from? Whose farm? Was it grass-fed all its life? I always go to the farmer's market, so I'm connected with the people who grow the food. And if I see sunflowers in December, I don't go back to that place, because I know they're using a very industrial system.
You've started a project called the Edible Schoolyard in order to teach children about their food and about their senses.
I launched the Edible Schoolyard program as a way for kids to experience the entire cycle of eating, from the garden to the kitchen to the table, and then back to the garden again. If you give them a sense of that cycle, it changes their entire understanding of life and nature. The Edible Schoolyard is also an attempt to educate children's senses by putting them in a garden and a kitchen. They lean from having all their senses activated. The smell and feel of everything from the soil to the kitchen pots and pans seem to enter into their awareness.
When you're trying to promote a new idea, like Edible Schoolyards, how do you persuade people to get excited about your ideas?
I think people sense my passion. But I also try to feed them the idea, literally. I make a meal, prepare a place setting, and serve healthy and delicious food. I make it irresistibly tasty. And then we can talk. When I was trying to President Clinton, I always thought that if I could give him a perfect peach, he would understand everything.
How do you respond to criticism that the way you shop and cook isn't really possible for people at lower income levels?
That's a message coming from a fast food industry that would prefer you buy packaged meals. It suggests that you don't want the hard work of cooking or going to a farmer's market or having a garden. But when you buy direct and cook yourself, the money goes to somebody who is taking care of the land, and you're giving your family healthier food. I understand that when people don't know how to cook, it might be hard to imagine making 3 meals out of one expensive chicken. But it's not difficult to learn, and it's a pleasure. If we all learn basic cooking skills, we can make extremely affordable food.
Over the course of your career, how have you balanced running your restaurant, Chez Pannis, and your activism with the Edible Schoolyard project?
I'm in conversation pretty much all the time with the main chefs at the restaurant. Even when I'm away, they're sending me their menus for comment. But I'm really very trusting, and I want them to run it as if it were theirs. I'm not trying to hold on to it. I trust the whole process. Whether I'm there or not is not important, although I do think my opinion is valuable.
Do you ever consider slowing down or retiring?
I always promised I would start a project with my friends involving shared work and living space, and that's in the back of my mind. But again, it's always been about meaningful work for me. So maybe a project that would bring together people of different ages, a bakery and a printing press. We could print news about food education in an artful way and send the news out together with cookies. We have a place with an open space in the middle and housing around the edges, with the business in the front part. We, the older population, could take care of the children and the gardens, bake bread, and make ourselves useful.
Chez Pannis was something of a financial disaster the first couple of years. How did you turn it around?
It was my father who did that. He was a manager at a large insurance company for nearly 30 years, then worked at the Institute of Social Research in Ann Arbor before starting his own consulting firm in Berkeley. He loved me and that I wanted to start a restaurant, and my parents mortgaged their house so I could. When we were in that crisis, he asked, "Do you want me to help?" And I said yes. He told me, "You need to get a computer," and we got one. Then he said, "You need a business manager," and he found somebody. Then, when he saw how we were buying food, he said, "You need a farm." He and my mother looked at all the farms within an hour of Chez Pannis, and he came back and presented 3. But he really loved only one, run by Bob Kennard, so we connected, and now we've been working together for almost 30 years.
Your restaurant was revolutionary not just for its menus, but for offering flexible work schedules for the staff. How did you weigh the costs and benefits?
In the restaurant, cafe, and bakery, we have a two-chef system. It's hard for me to describe how valuable that is. It means you have a whole group of chefs who could take over in an emergency or if one person wants more time off. They also have time to be with their families and to research the food they're cooking. They can work days instead of nights. They can be home for dinner. And since we did that, the food has dramatically improved because there's this healthy competition and collaboration that goes on. It really sparks the imagination. When I want to know something about food, I can ask 6 head chefs and 6 assistant chefs. We're all able to hear criticism. This has helped Chez Pannis survive. It's never on automatic.
Did you ever feel extra pressure as a woman working in a traditionally male-dominated industry?
I never thought about it. But I did use my femininity, if you will, to get what I wanted. I'd go to the meat guy and sweetly ask, "Couldn't you help me?" He'd say, "Of course," and I'd get those nice chickens.
Why is there still only one Chez Pannis?
Because what I like best is knowing the people I work with and the people who come into the restaurant, so it feels like a home. It's just such a personal thing for me. I cannot imagine having to fly to multiple restaurants. I'd rather eat in other people's.
As the saying goes, for everything there is a season. You put a lot of emphasis on foods that are in season, don't you?
Absolutely. We eat differently in the winter than we do in the summer. At the restaurant, it wasn't until we decided to use only ingredients in season that we discovered what was really available. We have this bounty of greens, things that I'd never heard of before. We found all of these colored carrots, yellow, orange, rose-colored and white carrot, and little turnips of every shape and stripe, as well as varieties of beans, such as the shell beans we use throughout the winter. Add the grains and you've got a beautiful palette of tastes and colors. When you don't pay attention, you miss out on this diversity.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have. Thank you so much for coming to speak with us today.
It was my pleasure.
答え